I suppose like it sounds almost like childlike, but it's the aquarium concept started from something that when I was 14 years old, and I just had a dream one day where I was just like of this album cover where it's just me underwater and it's just, me behind the glass or something like that, and there's just a bunch of like this Atlantean city behind me. I had no concept as to like what it was going to be, what any of this shit meant. It was originally going to be called the Aquariums of Sound, but then I realized that's like corny as hell. So I just named it like Aquarium eventually, right? Um, Over time, it was just figuring out what I wanted to do with that project eventually. I mean, I had made my Searching of the Sounds mixtape, I made my Lonely Cold Winters mixtape, Wavy Boy, but then after that, once I was like, you know what, I'm going to finally do it, it was then thinking, how am I going to make this make sense? Right? You figure that's kind of working backwards, right? You know what I mean? It's like you should have the point and then work up to it, right? Nah, it was backwards. It's like, okay, I have this like vision of this cover. How am I gonna like? What am I gonna do with it? This is the canvas that's painted for me. What am I gonna do? And this was during a time of a lot of shit, man. My grandmother died. I was going through uh, big bouts of depression, and it was just a very rough time for many reasons. And you hear it on the album. I was very open book on that shit. But like, I had taken a break from music for over 3 years, and it was probably one of the darkest periods of my life. But then over time, working on this album and being super perfectionist about it, it just ended up being about my hiatus. Really, it just ended up being about that, and it ended up going, in tandem with the concept perfectly. Just finding myself, that kind of journey, and just like growing up and just finding out what I wanted to do in life and how I was going to do it, and getting back on my feet, and kind of that kind of element of losing yourself and sort of finding yourself again. And the along with just my general opinions of my outlook on the world, there's a lot of layered stuff about just like what's going on in the world politically, what's going on, with how people are, how the societal structure, and then sort of making that into a metaphor of this aquarium of like a food chain, as well as like people. Like if you look at the cover, you see the dollar sign kind of being, you know, cast out on a rod as like bait, and then you can kind of like grasp what I'm getting at there, and like who's at the top there, doing that. And it was not only sort of a lot of interpersonal shit with me as like a human being, but just also my outlook on the world, and you know, um, and how I could craft that into this concept. And it all, in the end, it all came together really well. I think it started out as just some random fever dream when I was 14 of just this random ass cover of me underwater. And when I finally released it, it just, yeah, it ended up being this interwoven, interpersonal, like deep open book. Here's me, along with just this geopolitical outlook of everything that was just going on in the world. Really, that's how I sort of saw it. And um, shit, there were still songs on there that aren't released. There are unreleased Aquarium songs that didn't make the cut. One being like a 7-minute fucking political like masterpiece. No, that's corny. Cut that out. There was an unreleased. Sorry. So there was also a lot of unreleased stuff on the album as well. And there was, like for instance, there was like this 7-minute track just talking about a lot of political stuff, but I felt like it just didn't suit the cut in contrast with everything else on it. And I might release it someday, but yeah, there's just like a lot of trial and error with that project, and a lot of sitting on it, a lot of just listening to shit over and over and over again. And I was very intimate with the way I made it, and I think it's my best work. I do think it is my best work, because it's the only project I've made where everything is just my production, my mixing, every beat, every instrument, everything. This is all me into this project. And I think you can't say that about my previous projects where I was just rapping over other people's shit. But yeah, I'm happy out with Aquarium. So that's how it all kind of came together in my head.